in here. New on NFL Live, fresh off his new 4-year, $168 million contract to stay in Seattle, JSN addressed the media.
It's an honor to feel that confidence come from your teammates and come from, the third floor and your head coach. And, for us to get this deal done, speaks volumes. Definitely just a little weight off my shoulders and just to go out there and, let it fly.
I really wish you guys could have just seen Bond sprinting around the studio. That's our researcher. Yeah, he had whatever is on that paper was really important. Mike T, like many reigning Super Bowl champs, we saw Seattle lose a bunch of talent this offseason. There's Bonds. Shout out to Bonds. He's the best. I want a Bonds camera. Now, the Seattle Seahawks are spending big to keep their top wideout. Is Seattle spending, you think, in the right places, though, this offseason?
Absolutely. It's talent and character. To me, it had to be about Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and Devin Witherspoon, in my opinion, probably isn't far behind. They lost some really good players, as you mentioned, Laura, highlighted by players like Greek Woolen, Kenneth Walker, Super Bowl MVP. But when you can keep someone like Jaxon Smith-Njigba in the prime of his career, you are telling your locker room, and Dan, you know this as a former player, we are going to reward talent, we're going to reward production and character. So this was an absolute have-to-have. I admire their discipline to let those other players graduate, which certainly isn't easy, but Smith-Njigba is a foundational piece.
I love the player. I love the fact that he got paid. I love the way that he grew early on in his career. He became one of the, if not the best receivers in football this year. I do think it's interesting to pay attention to Seattle right now, just how they're building their football team. They're going to pay their wide receiver room about a quarter of their salary cap. They're going to pay that room over $80 million this year. I don't disagree with it, and I do think it's the benefit of Sam Darnold's getting $33 million. That's 15th highest in the league. Does that stay? If you're Sam Darnold, are you not trying to go get more money after winning the Super Bowl? They're obviously not paying a running back. All their tight ends are young players, so they're reaping the benefit of it. But to pay three guys $73+ million at wide receiver, I think we don't see that often in the NFL.
And I think Rashid Shaheed was interesting because when they acquired him, and you're like, okay, maybe this is like a short-term rental, but they extended him, and he has game-changing speed. So, to me, that makes sense. I would think Cooper Kupp, if they were going to make a move, would probably be the next one out. Maybe he gets through the year, but they have some other young guys like Torrey Horton behind him as well.
Yeah, and Bobo.
You don't love losing
Cooper's just such an important part to their offense. He's a guy that just does stuff that doesn't show up on box scores, but shows up on tape.
Come on, Laura. You're asking a quarterback if he wants a veteran receiver. They came out of the room saying yes.
Reliable.
He was a former Ram, too.
Reliable.
Right. Adam, what more do you want to add?
Well, this has been a busy offseason for the Seattle Seahawks. And when you win a Super Bowl, you pay a premium to your players to keep them. And it's one of the reasons that they could not afford to re-sign Kenneth Walker and let him go into free agency where he wound up with the Kansas City Chiefs, because the Seahawks go ahead and give Jaxon Smith-Njigba over $42 million a year and make him the highest paid wide receiver in NFL history, and they're not done yet. At some point this offseason, they'd like to address the contractual status of their outstanding young quarterback, Devin Witherspoon, and get him signed to a long-term deal that will not be cheap. And between paying Jaxon Smith-Njigba and paying Devin Witherspoon, that limits the options that you have elsewhere, and that is why they've had to make some of the financial decisions they have this offseason.
Schefter, have you heard anything about Sam Darnold trying to rework his deal? I know it's only in his second year, but he is the Super Bowl champion quarterback, making 15th most money in the league.
Dan, anytime a player wins a Super Bowl, and anytime he's the starting quarterback for a Super Bowl winner, usually we see quarterbacks, coaches, general managers have their contracts adjusted after Super Bowl wins. It would not be a surprise if at some point before the start of the season, the Seahawks incentivized Sam Darnold, rewarded him to some degree. I don't think they're going to tear up the contract and give him a new deal, but do I think that there could be enhancements and rewards that are added? Yeah, I think that could happen.
Yeah, well-deserved. And you just think about Sam Darnold's story, remarkable all the way around. New on NFL Live, we got some clarification. Let's look ahead, to the opening week of the football calendar, what it's going to look like. The champs, we're talking about Sam Darnold, they will open up on Wednesday night in Seattle against an opponent still to be determined. And how about this? The following night here in the States, the 49ers and Rams will play a game from Australia. So the kickoff is at 8:35 p.m. Eastern on Thursday night, which means with the time difference, the game will kick off at 10:35 a.m. local in Melbourne between the Rams and the 49ers. Adam, not the only schedule news, there's more. We got an update on the upcoming Super Bowl locations. What do we need to know?
Or the NFL will have its owners' meetings next week in Arizona, where they're expected to approve the Super Bowl 63 for Las Vegas, Nevada. So it would return there. The Super Bowl, as we all know, is scheduled for LA next season. It is scheduled for Atlanta the season after, and it looks like right now everything is on track to make Las Vegas the home of Super Bowl 63. I was told it's a mere formality, that owners are expected to approve that next week. So it looks like the Super Bowl will be returning to Las Vegas, where it just was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, you see that little highlight there on Super Bowl 61. That's because it's on Valentine's Day. It's on ESPN. It's Disney. It's ABC. I don't know if anybody knew that yet, but
I'm aware. I'm aware it's on ESPN.
We're aware.
ABC,
we
Disney.
can't wait.
Valentine's Day.
It's the first one ever on Valentine's Day. Also, national holiday coming up the next day. We talked at length about the Buckeye defenders earlier in the show, but we would be remiss if we didn't take some time to talk about that guy running that route, catching that pass. That's Carnell Tate, Ohio State's top wideout. And everybody's excited to see where he goes in next month's NFL draft. Louis Riddick in the building for today's Pro Day workouts. Louis, what did you see from Tate?
Well, Laura, what I think you saw from Carnell Tate today is that combination of fluidity and suddenness as a route runner. And that's hard to really, capture in a prospect, having both of those traits. But Carnell Tate has them. He's the kind of guy who comes off the line of scrimmage with good foot quickness. You see him, he's very fluid within the pattern stem of his route. He can lower his hips, get in and out of the breaks. And then when he runs the more speed-oriented type of big dig routes on, coming across the middle, or the speed outs on the outside, you just see how fluid and how under control he is running those as well. And then the last part of the down, the catch phase, he's got big, giant hands. He snatches the ball out of the air. There is no double catching. And he just really is the complete all-around receiver. You could just see a number of teams in the top 10 just absolutely salivating, trying to think about what they could do with this guy in their offense, namely maybe a team like New Orleans. But regardless, Carnell Tate is going top 10, and he did everything in his power here today to go ahead and solidify his status as such.
Tell him, Lou, we agree. Oh, look, it's up there. That's real. It's over our heads. Field has 9 wide receivers going in the first 2 rounds of his mock draft, including 6 in the first round. Great draft for wide receivers. That would be tied for 3rd most round 1 receivers ever. The record is 7, done in both 2024 and 2004. Top of that bunch, Carnell Tate to the Browns at number 6. Dan, what do you make of Tate as the top wideout in this class? Do you agree? Do you like him?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. I think that when you watch Carnell play, there's remnants of George Pickens in his game.
Ooh.
The long, lengthy, and body control and the way that he can track a football. He's not necessarily this route running savant. I don't believe he's going to just torch people vertically with his speed. But when you think of George Pickens, it's the catch the contested catches, make the strong-handed catches with the defender draping over you, the leaping ability with the ball while the ball is in the air. I think that Carnell Tate showed that this past season. I guess the biggest question that I have is he truly ready? Because when you're drafted in the top 10 to be the one, he played opposite Jeremiah Smith, who's going to be maybe the number 1 pick in the NFL draft next year, certainly consideration for top 5. He benefited off of that. That's my question. Is he ready to step in and have everybody else benefit off him?
I think so. He's another one that was taught under Brian Hartline, who went on to become a head coach who's done such a great job developing receivers. I actually thought, the one question you had was the speed. The time speed was 4.53. I thought he played faster. And to me, he's the number 1 guy, just slightly over Mekhi Lemon. I love the way Lemon plays, his physicality, but because of his size and the fact that Carnell Tate could go outside is why I give him a slight edge over Lemon, who I think is also going to be a great player. But I would put Lemon in the slot where I think someone like Tate could play outside, and that position versatility was the tiebreaker for me. And, you think about a team like the Jets who have Garrett Wilson. I think Tate is much more of a complement to what Garrett Wilson could do than, let's say, somebody like Mekhi Lemon, who, again, I think is going to be a great player. You hear a lot of St. Brown comparisons on him. They should both be great. But to answer your question, Dan, I think Tate, because of that system, because of that coaching staff, he should be ready to go from day one.
Yeah, I love Mekhi Lemon as well. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the guy. If I were drafting receivers, I would want to find a bunch of guys that just played like and competed like Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah.
I'm a believer. You got to block to be a part of the offense. He's great at that. He's tough. He's reliable. He's got great body language. Mekhi Lemon, so many similarities.
I interviewed Brian Hartline about all of his recent great receivers, and the thing that he said about Carnell Tate was the mental makeup is the most impressive thing about his game. Which you think about how impressive his game is on the field.
All those
that's
Ohio State
saying
receivers are smart, man.
They are. You have
see
to
that
be.
on tape. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love it. You